logic of that, and I thought it was sensible. But I decided it didn't need to be a big, complicated book because the detail had already been written in the big book of the soul. So I just decided to write another small, simple book, which was just called Your Holographic Soul and How to Make It Work for You. And that really just has the sort of theory stuff in the first section in a nice, simple sort of question and answer style. And then in the second section, this was when I really decided to do some self-help writing for the very first time. I mean, one of the other things that has happened to me personally is that over the last few years, I would like to think I've managed to do a fair bit of personal growth for various reasons and in various ways. But I've done a lot of work on my own personal self, basically, and it finally felt that with all the different snippets of self-help information that I've picked up over the years from lots of different books by other people and, and my own experiences as well and various other things, I thought maybe I could finally take the chance of actually putting that down in a nice simple sort of question and answer format. Because, having lived a lot of it, I finally felt I might have something useful to say that would help other people. So, and certainly, the feedback I've had so far is that people do find that useful. I've kept it nice and simple, but I think it's pretty good stuff. And I also work very closely, actually, with about 10 very close friends who just sort of picked themselves really for me as the editing process for that book was going on. It was very important to work with other people, I felt then, and again, it's very difficult when you're an author to sort of take really good, strong, constructive criticism on a book, but I think you have to. And if you do it actually in the editing stage, when people can actually give you that information and you can really make some significant changes. I ended up with that little book, virtually completely rewriting it from cover to cover, with all the input from my various good friends and colleagues. But it was fantastic input, and it's ended up making it so much of a stronger book. Yes, I'm very happy with that, and I think it has a lot to offer people.
Good. I was going to bring you right up to the present now, because you just recently brought out your next book, The Future of the Soul.
Yeah.
Could you tell the listeners a little bit about this book?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really the last one. So Your Holographic Soul was written earlier this year, well, late over Christmas really, and I brought it out, I think, in February, March time. And then obviously everybody will be aware that the whole issue of 2012 and everything around 2012 has been gaining an awful lot of attention for a long time now, and I hadn't really got heavily involved in it, but partly as a result of all the wonderful people that I've met through training as a regression therapist, I became increasingly exposed to these ideas and was increasingly working with people who really were demonstrating the reality of how this energy shift is affecting people. I've seen some very good friends and colleagues just grow so much, so rapidly in the last year. And I think I've been lucky enough to have the same happen for myself too. And so any sort of I used to be rather cynical about this, but, as soon as you switch your brain over and start actually looking at the beauty and the opportunity of this energy shift, that is not, the other thing I emphasize is, this is not about waiting for some magical date in 2012. This is all happening right now, and it has been for a while. And as soon as you switch yourself onto it and open up to it, you find, you do open yourself and you just automatically attract into your life people who are resonating with you and are making the same changes and shifts and growing the same way that you are. And it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And so as a result, but I also felt that quite a lot of the stuff that I'd heard about 2012 didn't feel very ground. Well, either, it was the Hollywood blockbuster doom and gloom catastrophe stuff, or it was what I call, and again, I say this with as much love as I possibly can, but, the slightly more sugar-coated sort of sweet saccharine version of 2012, which I also didn't feel was sufficiently grounded to be really letting people know what was going on. So I did feel very much drawn to the fact that I was going to have to do some work with this myself in some way or another, and I kind of already knew that I was going to have to write another little simple book and I was going to be called The Future of the Soul. What actually happened on the third module of my regression training was that not as a joke, that's not quite right, but really not taking it very seriously, a number of us decided to write a few questions up about 2012 and to put them to one of the girls in the group who had done a little bit of channeling before, but not a great deal. And we only spent about 20 minutes putting some very rudimentary questions about 2012 and the whole energy shifting together. But Janet Trelaw, who was the subject, goes into trance very, very quickly anyway, and almost as soon as she'd gone into trance, she was shaking from head to foot. I mean, obviously some sort of energies were operating within her that were very, very powerful. And, you know, even if she was a terrific actress, trust me, she couldn't stay like that for a whole hour, which is what she did, and she was aching from head to foot afterwards. And just the messages that started to come through were incredibly lucid, and we felt incredibly important. And there were quite a few aspects that certainly none of us had come across before in any of the literature. I mean, not that I was an absolute expert on it, I have to say, but there were various messages coming through, and which I felt originally were counterintuitive, but as soon as the messages came out, I was immediately thinking, oh, God, that, of course, that makes sense. I just hadn't thought of it like that. So it's things like, you know, the sort of destruction that's been wrought on the planet for so many tens of years, or even hundreds of years virtually, and the massive overpopulation of the planet at the moment. The council, who they came to tell, they called themselves in the end, that where Janet was channeling, they said, this is all absolutely as it should be. This is planned. They said, in just the same way that as an individual soul, you have to overcome obstacles and hurdles in order to grow and to really move forwards. You know, you don't really grow and move forward, certainly in the physical plane, if you never have any obstacles or hurdles to overcome. It's only by doing those things that you really move forwards. And they said, and it's just like that for the consciousness of Mother Earth itself, you know. And so this is really helping her to raise her energies, to take advantage of this shift that's happening, this energy, this big energy shift that's happening at the moment. And there's various other, there's some hugely important things. I can't obviously mention them all now, but the other very big part of this is that they strongly emphasize that this is all part of a 26,000-year cycle. So there have been 2 or 3 of these events before that have had an impact on humanity, because humanity in its modern form hasn't been around for all that long, obviously. And they gave, because I have a particular interest in the history of the thing in terms of how humanity has developed from a spiritual point of view, because that's what Genesis Unveiled was all about, I asked a lot of questions about that in our second session. We had a much longer 4-hour session about a month later and got loads more information. And, of course, I was properly prepared then because I'd put some very detailed questions together. And we had some wonderful information come out, as I say, not only about the future but about the past as well. And so it just felt very important to get that out. And, of course, that was the future of the soul. It had been given to me on a plate. And although, of course, channeled information is a bit of a departure for me compared to the rational spirituality.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, it's quite a difference, really.
Well, it is. Yeah, of course it is, Mark. But, you know, it's something that I had to take a risk with because I just think this stuff is incredibly important. And I'm not suggesting for a moment it's 100% foolproof, but it certainly resonated with all of us. And if it resonates with the other people that read it and they find it useful to help them to see what's going on at the moment, and the most important message the council gave us was this is an incredible opportunity that you have been, you know, as souls, we've all known about this for thousands of years because it's part of a cycle. So a lot of us have been planning for this wonderful event for thousands of years over many lives. And to then not be aware of what's happening now and to take full advantage of it would be absolutely a travesty. So, you know, of course I felt it was incredibly important to put this information out there. And unfortunately, if that puts some of my other readership off, then that's obviously a risk that I just have to run, I felt.
Have you had much reaction from people yet about the future of the soul?
A few bits and pieces. Most people really resonating with it and absolutely loving it. I've had 1 or 2 people, obviously, who reacted just as I've just said. You know, they found the departure too much for them, but that's understandable and that's absolutely fine. I don't have, you know, I'm aware that's going to happen. But for the most part, people finding the book are the ones who need to find it, and it's absolutely resonating with them. And I think it's, you know, of course I think it's important. And I mean, there's an element of this which is nothing to do with me in my own work at all now. This is much bigger than that. And it's about the messages for what's really happening right now and how we should really flow with this shift and take advantage of it. You know, it's not all going to be sweetness and light. There are going to be a number of major upheavals. I deliberately didn't ask exactly where they're going to be, but they're going to be all around the world, and they're going to be over the course of, you know, 5 to 7 years. And there will be, you know, big changes. And so, you know, there will be disruption and there will be upheaval. But when we come out the other side of all of that, we will be in a very different place, and it will be a wonderful place to be. So, and if you have a soul perspective, really, we shouldn't be fearing death. If that's what is in our life plan at this point, well then so be it,